Today on the Videomaker podcast, we talk all about bit rates for YouTube. This is actually one of our most searched for topics on Videomaker.com, so we figured we'd dedicate a podcast to it. When we were looking at this topic, we figured this is like a one-word podcast. And I won't give you the word right now. I guess you can listen in to find out what that is. But we talk all about bit rates generally. We talk about the YouTube compression system. We speculate on what YouTube might be doing in the background. I don't know. Neither of us know the answer. I don't know if anyone really knows the answer about how their compression actually works. But we talk about our experiences and recommendations on how we think people should proceed generally. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we'd love it if you went to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and hit the subscribe button. It will deliver the podcast straight to your mobile device every time we release one, making it very convenient for you and very helpful for us. So with that out of the way, let's get on with the show. But first, I want to tell you about MPB. MPB is the world's largest online platform for used photography and videography equipment. MPB is a destination for everyone, whether you've just discovered your passion for visual storytelling or you're already a pro. MPB recirculates more than 300,000 items of used gear every year, extending the life and creative potential of photo and video equipment for visual storytellers around the world. Headquartered in the creative community of Brooklyn, the MPB team includes trained camera experts and seasoned photographers and videographers who bring their passion to work every day to deliver outstanding service. Every piece of kit is inspected carefully by their product specialists and comes with a 6-month warranty to give customers peace of mind that buying used doesn't mean sacrificing on quality or reliability. Visit mpb.com to find out more. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, is Chris Monlux.
Hello.
Chris, are you wearing the same shirt you wore 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't take it.
Well,
I've been wearing
really
it.
Coincidental.
Yeah, I didn't take it off. Uh-huh. It's been on there for a while.
Yeah, that's our new podcast uniform.
Yeah, but with NAB coming, we taped this on the same day. We're just joking.
Yeah. 101st episode.
Yeah, we made 100th episode, and we decided to make it the 101st. With some drama around the office. We have two things to talk about. One, Mike didn't know about, which our CEO Matt York just came in and wanted to file a complaint that we were out of potato chips. That Mike we were supposed to have snacks and no snacks.
Yeah, I bought a big, one of those Costco big boxes of prepackaged, individually wrapped, chips.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is going to last us like 2 months.
Yeah,
and,
it's your house.
Yeah. It lasted like 2.5 weeks.
I'm surprised it lasted that long.
I figured I'll just get some stuff when I'm at Costco, and I go to Costco like once a month. And so I'm not planning to go to Costco for a while, and we're out of snacks. So I got to find someone else who's going to go to Costco. Maybe I'll go this weekend.
But the other thing is this morning we kept on hearing whack, and there is a really quite good looking, I think it's an Oriole.
No way.
Yeah, well, I
think it's a robin.
Oh, really? See, there's a type of Oriole that's in Bidwell Park.
Really?
Yeah, I actually, on our Slack, I put a link to it's all of the birds of Bidwell Park, and that's how I identified it.
Maybe it is.
But regardless, it's a really pretty bird, but it thinks the reflection in the window is trying to come and scoop up all his ladies. I think it's thinking it's really pretty and should get all the ladies, and that there's another pretty bird really close to it in the reflection of the mirror or the window. And so he's been smacking it. You actually were able to, Mike has his office right next to Tara's, and Tara also has some windows. And Mike, what'd you do to get the bird to stop?
So robin.
You think it's a robin?
Yeah, looking at it. I would call myself, by the way, a casual birder.
Oh, see, I'm not at all.
The robin has a red chest,
okay.
And the Oriole has red up onto its face. And that bird didn't have red on its face.
No, he didn't.
Orange. But I haven't seen one of those in Butte County, so I have to go look for it. Last seen May 26, 2012.
Maybe they're all dead.
Yeah. Anyways, oh yeah, how do I get the bird to stop?
Yeah.
So, okay, so we put up. So I have a plant in my office that covers it's in front of the window. So I figured, it's like flying in
Trying to land
but no, we've covered it up and it's still going. So Chris is right. I think that it thinks it's a thread or it thinks it's a mate or something. But
yeah, I thought there had to been like a nest or something, but it's obviously a male bird.
Yeah,
and I don't think the male birds really do a lot of kicking people out of the nest. I think that's mama's job. Yeah.
So one of our coworkers read, well, actually a trick is to use white tape. If you put on white tape on the outside of the window, the bird will think it's a cobweb and they don't want to fly into cobwebs. So that'll scare them off. And so I was like, okay, great. There's got to be some masking tape around here somewhere. Couldn't find any masking tape. So I found some blue painter's tape and I figured I'd give it a shot and it worked. I just put blue tape on the outside of the window in like vertical stripes. Looks like jail cell bars.
Yeah.
And that's all it took. No more bird. But now I'm in jail.
Well, yeah. And then unfortunately on Tara's side, her windows are actually on the other side of the cages for the air conditioner. So we'd have to scale some pretty big bars to get to it. So hopefully the bird will move on. But that's the fun of Videomaker. We got rain yesterday because we're in California. We all freaked out. And then we had this bird that's mad.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that it wasn't doing it during the podcast. Otherwise, we would have to.
Oh yeah, you totally hear it because this is like 15 feet from me right
now. It was constant too.
Oh yeah,
I thought he was going to die.
Yeah, he's got to have a bad headache. I mean, and he did it yesterday. Yeah, the end of the day yesterday too.
Yeah.
Poor bird.
Yeah. Well, it's gone now.
Yeah.
Okay, so today's topic is bitrate for YouTube.
Yeah, this is we'd think that this could be a really easy answer, and the answer is 60.
60.
And then, all right, see you guys next week. No, well, I mean, that is kind of the simple answer. You can go and search this and Google it, and it'll give you options. But there are more things to think about when you're outputting your video than just what YouTube wants specifically. And, of course, just really your goal of your content. And we've learned this because we've had a YouTube channel for a real long time. And we have some videos that we uploaded at the highest quality that YouTube would take, and they are 133. They're not even half resolution of SD TV.
Yeah.
And there's no way of updating them. So you definitely want to make sure to pay attention, right? To put as much as you can. Now, this is well before even Google owned YouTube.
Yeah, so. they were really, in startup mode at the time. Pinching every penny it couldn't take.
Well, and putting video on the internet was a real novel at the time, right? That was a hard thing to do.
Bandwidth wasn't there, and also the cost of storage was way, way, way higher than it is now.
Yeah, totally. Well, and of course they didn't have the backing of Google, which has the servers everywhere. So you want to pay attention to getting it output the right way. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I wanted to look this up because I have some other anecdotal experiences with it, but I'm like, what is it saying? One, there we have I'll put it in the URL, the description of just Google's recommendations for it. But it's somewhat vague because it's not talking about every resolution. It's not talking about what you're actually making with your video. But what I'd assume is this is what YouTube for the most part is going to encode your stuff as. It's going to take whatever you have and make it that way. But then I wanted to go and see, because most of the time I choose a preset on Premiere that's YouTube, and then it usually 21, 4K or whatever your resolution is going to be. And sure enough, it was 60 megabits per second. So that's definitely a good standard. The catch to all this is that one, it used to be a trick that if you had anything below 4K, so HD, it would accept it. Even if you made it a higher bit rate, it would down convert it into a lower bit rate. But 4K and higher resolutions, they will accept more data than you give them. They have their ideal, but they will actually let you put in a big old file. And it'll encode it if it needs to, or it will use it. But the nice thing is that YouTube's got really junk encoding sometimes. And so that's a good reason to give it exactly what it wants, but it's likely still going to do something to it. So the idea here is to put in a file that is much larger. So every time that YouTube encodes everything or has a new way of encoding, it'll go back to that original file and update your file, and now it'll play better and nicer. But I think that might be a little bit of a wives' tale at this point. I don't think that that's still a workaround.
You don't think they're holding on to the originals?
Well, I don't know. They don't give you a chance. Well, maybe they do.
I bet they do. I bet they do. I mean, how many people, what percentage of YouTubers are uploading, RE 4444, mega clips?
Well, I mean,
most people are probably uploading whatever comes out of their phone.
Yeah.
Right, so they might as well hold on to those originals.
Yeah. Well, but you can see HDR now on YouTube, and YouTube has higher resolutions than just 4K, right? You can watch 8K footage on YouTube, and they, whenever you go higher in resolution, your bit rate goes with that, right? So if you double your resolution, your bit rate's going to need to be double that to be the same quality, right? Yep. So it's all relative, but the big thing here is
not double. I think it's quadruple.
Is it 4? Well, every time if it's 4K to 8K, that would be 4 times.
Yes.
I'm saying every time. I just said every time you double it.
Yeah.
So it would double it. But
every time. Yeah.
Every time you double, the bit rate also doubles. That's more my point. Every time the resolution gets larger, so does the bit rate. But so you want to, so you can take advantage of that. And I think the other part of to pay attention to is really what else are you trying to do? If you use Vimeo, for example, Vimeo will let you upload your video to them, and then they will upload that video to YouTube. Well, Vimeo might have a better, a higher quality that it'll accept. Well, do you want to make 2 files, or do you want to just give it to Vimeo and then have Vimeo give it to YouTube giving it the same file, just passing it along? I'd probably rather do 1 step than 2 and let the system do its thing. So you might not then want to output as that. But sometimes formatting issues also have. So like in our case, an end screen is not necessary on videomaker.com, but it is on YouTube because we want you to watch the next video, and we don't have the same kind of system set up in our player on our website. So I have a different render for that. Okay, well, now I should actually think about my final destination. You should always choose your render settings based on your destination, but you should take in consideration what you're going to be doing with it. Are you just going to make out a master and then re-encode that? Or are you going to go back to your system and output a different bit rate for each of the videos from the actual project or from the master? How is that workflow going? And there's a lot of ways to do that with watch folders as well. So you could render one thing and have it saved in one watch folder, and bam, it'll make you 15 different versions that you need and name it whatever way you'd like. And we were just talking about this on the last podcast, but every destination needs a little something different. There isn't one place to just put your video and it'll go everywhere and have it do it seamlessly, because none of the other brands really want to work together. They do it begrudgingly. And so it's really important to find out what bitrate you need. So I say 60 megabits. Well, that's for 4K. That's not the same for HD. Now, what if I'm going to do a live stream on YouTube? Well, you're not going to do a live stream at 60 megabits. No way. You're talking, 4, 8, maybe 10 if you have a nice system and you're a little bit higher end. And I mean, get anything above that is definitely, you're not talking about an individual or even a small team that can do such a broadcast.
So, Chris, let's assume that Google is truthful. Actually, I don't know if they've said this outright or not, but let's assume that Google does hold on to the originals and they re-encode it when their system, improves, when their encoding improves. Why not just upload the absolute biggest and best file that you have every time?
You could. You're also trusting the encoding, but I think that's a good line of thought. The big thing there is going to be your bandwidth to push up a big file like that. I mean, it's not hard to, let's put it this way. A lot of cameras that are shooting in 4K, UHD 4K, their top bit rate to capture in is 100 to 150. That's your standard 8-bit UHD 4K file is going to be shot in that. So, how much quality loss are you going to go just to have your final compressed version? Now, here's the other part of it, though, is if you're doing well, like we're here right now, we're just looking at a camera, not a lot changing from frame to frame. What's the benefit of this higher bit rate? Nothing. Very, very little. You're not going to ever see the difference because there's nothing in the shot that's going to tell you any different. There's not a lot of information changing from frame to frame. There's no way for tearing to happen because the camera was moving quickly. I guess you could go so low as to affect the sharpness of your image. You definitely can, start having it compress the crap out of your image. And that's the other part you're getting out of it is the smaller you're making your file, the more compression you're giving, and the less, once you've done that compression, there's no uncompressing in this way. Even if you started off with raw video, once you compress it, you're not going to get back to raw via that compressed version. There's nothing like that yet.
And YouTube doesn't give any guidance about static or variable bitrate.
Yeah, or like how many runs through you should be doing on your variable.
Yeah, passes.
How many passes, and that's usually like just in the way of catching the issues, right? So if they do variable passes, they make the two files and then they look at them and go, which ones? Let's fill in the holes where we missed it on the other one, and then you can have a more accurate output. But is that necessary in your product? And that's the question you have to ask yourself is, if you're doing some high-end action scene, yeah, every single time you can choose to not compress something is going to be beneficial. The more you compress it, the more all of that effort into making all the little details fine and look good, or you're going to start marginalizing all your image into being more of a gobbled mess, especially in fast and high action.
So I would argue that you should always upload the highest quality you can, largest resolution, highest quality, and here's why. First of all, I think if I'm gonna ask you a question, I think I know the answer. Have you ever encountered a situation where you've uploaded a large file, high bitrate file to YouTube, it looked bad, so you took it down and uploaded a lower bitrate file and it looked better?
No.
So I'm thinking about history here. That being that YouTube, unfortunately, doesn't allow you to replace your files, right? You can't just say, well, this thing has been around for a long time. I shot it in 12K and I published it in HD, 10 years ago. And now that it can do 8K, I'm going to upload a higher resolution file so that it looks nice for everyone. Not going to happen. Yeah, you got to take it down, right? And if you have a viral hit or it's being picked up by the search algorithm or whatever, you don't want to take it down. You leave up the lower resolution one, then upgrade it. So I would argue that, considering whatever you upload may be up there for years or decades or longer without ever being able to be touched again in terms of the file itself, that considering the downside seems to be imaginary, we should just upload the biggest, best you can. Keeping in mind that 10 years from now, it's going to, people are going to be able to see the full quality of it, hopefully, even if they're not watching it now. Yeah,
well, so I think that's true, but, there are very inefficient codecs out there that will really bloat your file, and there's not going to be a benefit to you because your source material is not bloated as well.
I would say that's YouTube's problem and not mine.
Well, yeah, except for I can output a a ProRes 444 file that's a 10-minute video, and it might be 100 gigabytes. But if I output that as H.265, still or match the highest quality that's in my composition, and it's going to be a far smaller size, and I'm never going to get any better than what I captured.
That's true. That's true.
If I recorded at 100 megabits, outputting it at 150 megabits isn't going to gain me anything.
Yeah.
Now there used to be a way of this. This was also a thing. You shot it in HD, convert it to 4K, and then upload that to YouTube, and that'll look nicer than their compression of your HD. And I agree with that. That's surely going to work. But you're also going to see your weaknesses of it's going to seem not as sharp when you're watching it in 4K, but you have a higher bitrate range, so you can actually bring that in there. But again, I think is every project going to benefit from, if you could upload your raw to it, would it be worth it? And the question is, would your product ever make it to a point where being viewed in RAW would be beneficial to your project or to the content?
I think it's really difficult to say in real time.
Yeah, I mean, you never know it's going to, because they don't give you a chance to actually update it. Although, you know, they do allow it. There's plenty of music videos that have been re-uploaded in HD that were never shot in HD and got remastered, and YouTube allowed them to update it. But we're not that big.
Yeah,
we're not small, but they don't even have, this is stuff that YouTube won't talk about, right? This is the same kind of thing as their payola for, like, you know, NBC putting Jimmy Fallon on the front page of trending when maybe it wasn't, you know, just through an exchange of money.
Yeah, so exactly. They do. They bend the rules.
They do what they want. Yeah. But for the rest of us, we're not going to get that chance. I don't know why. I mean, I get why they don't want it to change if you had a viral video and it's got all the good algorithm juice on it and you replaced it with something else because someone paid you to. Well, they already could tell me I've already uploaded this video by watching what the video's in it. So they can tell me how much of this video has actually changed. Because if you upload the same video twice, it's like, you already uploaded this video and it won't let you publish it unless the other one's private, and then it will. So surely they have the ability to scan the file to make sure that it's just a higher resolution of that thing.
Yes.
They have and I don't know why YouTube, other than I think it'd probably also be a storage thing, because if everybody all of a sudden updated all their files to 3 times larger, that would be a scalable issue. But I'm not sure if
who's going to do it. You know, how many people are really going to take advantage of that?
Well, I think of, there's so much of our stuff that I would love to have gotten to put it up, and a lot of people watched it, and most of the time the comments aren't necessarily that it's not good information or that the people have dated. It's that it looks like it was shot with a potato, because the stuff is so, you know, I'm still surprised at people that comment on stuff that's from 2009 about how it's low resolution. And it's like, you realize this is a pre-Google YouTube. Like, what would you expect? The guy at the zoo, that video is not high resolution. That first video, you know, the symbol off the mountain joke, whatever. I don't even remember what that was all about, but one of the first viral videos, the guy throwing a symbol off a mountain.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, it's got millions and millions of views.
I guess
I'll send it to you. It's stupid. It's just like, I don't even know what the premise is, but it was, you know, back when things went viral for no good reason. And now I think that things go viral for the things we know that go viral. You know, it's through people like Mr. Beast. The guy's a really very in-depth understanding of what gets clicks and what gets views. And I think that he's got a machine going for him as well, but that I think that there's, you know, a certain amount of knowledge that will get those things going, but it has to be a certain kind of content. So you have, you know, we don't have millions or billions of users on YouTube looking for video production content. You know, there is a ceiling there, right? You know, the biggest content creators that are making content about just video production hit a ceiling. They have to do more than that. I mean, even like Casey Neistat was doing stuff that wasn't just video production; it was telling stories. You know, even Marcus Brownlee, I think, he's in all technology, not just doing video production, and that's how you can talk to more people. It's still a niche otherwise. But this is off topic. YouTube's compression is garbage for things. Watch anything from the slow-mo guys when there's fine detail, like crystally, you know, fine detail, or when there's lots of things, like lots of gumballs or lots of nail heads or that kind of thing. YouTube just doesn't know how to deal with that stuff, and it's gotten better, but it's still like, well, when people care about that, usually they have a link to, like, here, watch the Vimeo link of this, because like, you know, they could upload it in the quality they wanted to, not what YouTube limited them to. And I get it. I mean, anybody can upload video to YouTube. In fact, it's like as quick as pressing record on your phone. So, you know, they have to manage that somehow, but I don't know. I don't think that scale is, they just don't care. I think YouTube would only cares about those bigger creators that are actually getting the majority. And then they want to empower everybody else with the thought that they can aspire for that. But you know, the realistic idea that anybody's random content is going to get 1 million views is pretty far out there.
I think maybe if someone from YouTube were here, they might tell us that they're not archivists. I don't know if that's the right word or not.
Yeah,
you know, they're an entertainment platform that sells advertising.
No, it's in make the content and let me have the content out there as best as it could.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me change with the times, you know?
So going back to the 60 number, that's 60 for 4K.
Yes.
And so if you jump to 8K, you got to quadruple that number.
Yeah. And of course, there's no guidance on what you should. And these are like best suggestions, right? This is like, oh, we think you should do it this way. YouTube doesn't let you under the hood. We have no idea who's doing the encoding or how it's doing it or even what the final content is. Although, you know, it is, I mean, you can download those files. So they are a certain type of file. But I imagine if YouTube had a codec that they could encode it so that you couldn't do anything with the video without their permission, they'd have it. And it'd be doing it by now. But the thing is codecs are complicated and actually take a lot to make happen. And it's unlikely for a company that's actually the host there to be trying to make that. That's going to be the camera manufacturers making it. And they have a whole different goal with what they're making than what everybody else is. I mean, YouTube says they can handle up to 60 frames per second. That's cool. That's, you know, that's good for, I think, you know, gaming and that kind of thing. But there's some gaming that even 60 doesn't look good. Like they want 120. They want more than that because you need that really smooth to be able to see everything. And so the same thing goes. The more you increase your frame rate, the higher your bit rate's going to be, right? Because you're sampling and making more data. So if you're going from 24 to 48, that 60 number should be 120. And in there, it says up to 60 for 4K 60, I believe. But is it analyzing what the frame rate is, or is it just looking at the data rate? I doubt that they're analyzing for frame rate as far as the ingest goes. I mean, I'm sure as far as the transcode goes, it's making those choices, but I don't think they're rejecting files that you send that are big. So I think it's a good idea to output your master, but don't make your master something that's greater than what you actually created in the first place.
It's not going to create data.
Yeah, you're not going to just, you know, if you shot in 420, outputting it in 422 isn't doing anything for you. There's still 420, regardless of you rendering it that way.
But that being said, if you shoot in H.264 and you edit it and then you output it in H.264, you're compressing compressed footage.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a generational loss there.
Yeah, and so in Premiere, there's actually export the same as project, like the project files. So it just goes match project files and export that. And that's going to be probably your highest quality if you're already working with compressed.
But won't it recompress it?
Well, yeah, obviously. It's combining all those clips into one clip, so it's going to compress it in that respect.
So in that sense, you could take a bunch of H.264 files, put them on a timeline, edit them down or whatever, and then export a lossless file that happens to be a higher bit rate than the originals. And it's not because it's making it any better quality. It's not even necessarily, a waste of, storage space or whatever, or compute power. It's just making sure that you don't lose anything generationally.
Yeah, and the thing is that the efficiency of your container is going to create this file size, right? So we used to have like generational loss when we did from tape to tape, and video used to be more of that. Yes.
Yeah, it keeps happening, right? If you take the same H.264 project and run it through Media Encoder over and over and over again at H.264 with the same settings, it'll degrade.
Yeah, eventually, but it's not that significant each time, right, compared to where we had been in the past. Yeah. Like this isn't, you're not talking about, making a beautiful painting into something you can't see.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty negligible in each edition, but if you compare source to copy number 15, you're probably going to be like, oh, I see where we're going here, because it's marginalizing. It's looking at your color. It doesn't know what is important. It's doing that on its own and sampling that and putting it together. So there's still some choices that the system are having to make for that, and that's the idea, like variable versus constant then, right? So constant bit rate means it's sampling every image and it's giving you a complete capture of that everywhere. Variable bit rate is I'm going to change how much I am compressing per image based on what changes in the image. So that, well, that's long GOP. I'm sorry. I'm complaining. I'm confusing these things.
Should be looking at each frame individually.
It's looking at
compressing it the same way.
Yeah, but variable is allowing it to be a different bit rate per, because it's usually a range, because you go variable bit rate, and is black or white no information?
Black is no information.
Black is no information. So if you have a scene that's more black, the data is going to be less because it doesn't have to have a big variable of colors that it's saving in black.
Yeah, and also there's things like if you have a person on a black background, it can look at that and go, boy, a lot of these pixels are the same. And so you can make averages, right? Like you take chunks of pixels and compress them down. And that's where you get the variability, because the next scene might be hugely dynamic and all kinds of subject matter. And then it goes, okay, well, actually, there's a lot going on here. So we have to encode it a little bit differently. And so that portion of the video has a higher bit rate as a result, as opposed to the constant one where it applies the same thing for every frame.
It's just rinse and repeat. And it usually takes longer, and the file is larger because it's making data for non-changing data.
Right.
And so that, we were talking about long GOP versus like intra, all intra, and that's the idea more of that always taking the same idea, but compared to the way it's actually capturing in camera. So it's doing the same thing. Instead of capturing a constant bit rate, it's changing it based on what changes in the scene, and then you're able to have a larger or smaller file there, but it's also averaging, and it's making some guesses on some things. And so if you have some fine detail, that stuff could be marginalized by just the process of compression.
So we should include in our links for this show links to our articles on these topics that are going to be much more thorough than you and I can be on the podcast.
Yeah.
How bitrate actually works, and how bit depth works. And all that.
The best. This is a simple understanding of what bitrate actually equates to. And I learned this on a trip with Sony on their action camera, because it was a new way that they were offering 100 megabits per second on their camera. And they said, you're going to really experience this when you're going down the hill, because you will be able to see all the trees and they'll look nice. You might see motion blur, but you won't see you tearing or bit, And I also had a GoPro at the time, which was shooting 50. I shot the same thing, and I remember going, "Oh, I noticed that. I see it."
So you get lots of like artifacting.
Yeah, just artifacting. It's in kind of the stuff that you don't see anyway, or it's the fast moving thing. So you might see it if it was your main subject and you turned. Well, yeah, you might see some tearing on their face. That's no good. So that's the best way I can wrap my head around, like, the more data is actually making it so those kinds of things can be smoother and not you're just seeing motion blur. You're not seeing the actual image breakup.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it might seem like we're talking about all this stuff and it's nitpicky and, you're going to see these blotches or not blotches or what have you. But I don't know about you, Chris. It seems like if I reflect on how YouTube has changed over the years, not only the platform itself, but just the content that exists on the platform. Today, in 2022, YouTube is actually pretty pro in its level of content.
Yeah.
The old days, the joke was, YouTube's just a bunch of cat videos, right? People getting hit in the nuts and stuff.
Yeah.
And now you can search a topic on YouTube, and even like pretty obscure topics have very professional looking video.
Oh yeah.
And so when we talk about these things like the screen tearing or artifacting or whatnot, these are the types of things that professionals pay close attention to.
Yeah.
And more, it's the kind of thing that you got to be able to consider if you want to compete on YouTube.
Yeah. For me, it always comes down to how much effort did I make to make this thing? Why do I want the last step to marginalize any of my hard work? Because to make an image beautiful from capture to delivery, you have to take care of that image. You need to make sure that you're trying to uplift it in every change you make during post, from when you shot it, from illuminating your scene the right way and all to make it so the camera can capture it. All those things you're doing to take good care to make these beautiful images to watch. Why would you have your last step make that worse? And so, I'm not someone that really finishes strong. I'm not like I can just go right through that project. That I tend to find the last little bits of projects a pain in the ass, really, to be honest. But I know that if I marginalize my final product, it's never going to be able to meet its ability to be the high quality content I want to make. And I don't know, if you're not making video and you don't want to make high quality video, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast, because I think that's what we're here for. If anything, you better have a good story if your image sucks. But, if you have both, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of finishing strong, good spot to stop the podcast, I think.
Hey, yeah, see, and you finished it for me, so therefore we finished it. Otherwise, I just keep on rambling.
It would just sort of fade into nothing until the battery ran out on the Sling Studio.
Yeah, on our little wireless transfer things. You could still hear us. We'd just be in black. It's a different way of saying fade to black. It'd just be cut to black, though.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks for listening to our 101st episode. We'll catch you next time.
Take it easy.
Big thanks to everyone for listening, and big thanks to MPB for sponsoring. If you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we'd love it if you went to Apple Podcasts, not iTunes, and left us a written 5-star review. It's a big help. Apple Podcasts is still kind of king of the hill when it comes to the podcast platform, so having written reviews is a big help in terms of getting new listeners. So would love it if you did that. So for Chris Monlux and everyone here at Videomaker, I've been Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.